This is Tyrannosaurus Rex when he is only a few days old. And this is an adult T-Rex, a giant predator capable of making the ground tremble with a single roar. And today, I'm going to simulate what would happen if you raised a Tyrannosaurus as a household pet. I will build habitats for him, feed him, introduce him to other animals, and go through every stage of his life, from a tiny hatchling to the absolute monster at the top of the food chain. And believe me, by the end, everything will spiral out of control. But let's start from the very beginning. Here he is, just hatched from the egg, about the size of a chicken, with a disproportionately large head, tiny legs, and a thin tail. His teeth look more like needles for now, and his roar sounds like a squeak. Right now, he's sleeping, and this is the smallest and most harmless moment of his entire life. It's time to wake him up. He opens his eyes, jerks his head up sharply, and starts snapping his teeth in the air. Instincts are already working. I carefully place a soft ball in front of him. At first, he looks at it as if assessing a threat, then suddenly lunges and starts shaking the toy as if it were prey. Good. The predator inside him awakens from the very first seconds. Now, I carefully bring my finger closer. He tilts his head, sniffs, and suddenly snaps his jaws. For now, the bite is weak, and I'm not in danger. But I understand perfectly well, time will pass, and one such snap will be able to crush bone. In order for him to grow, he needs food. I give him berries. He spits them out immediately. Watermelon. He crushes it and loses interest. An omelet. Better. He swallows it. But the moment I place a piece of raw meat in front of him, his behavior completely changes. He grabs it with his paws, sinks his teeth in, and starts tearing it apart with frightening focus. This is his food. This is his nature. He washes it down with water, spilling half the bowl, and looks at me as if demanding more. While he's small, the portions are tiny, but if he keeps growing at this rate, it will soon become a serious problem. Now he needs a home. I build a spacious terrarium for him. Half the space is a dry zone with sand, rocks, and elevations he can climb. In the back, a cave for solitude. I add dense ferns and prehistoric vegetation to create the feeling of a real ancient world. The second part is a shallow pool where he can cool down and train his coordination. While I'm setting everything up, I place him in shallow water so he can get used to it. At first, he panics, flailing his paws, but within a few minutes, he begins to balance confidently. He learns incredibly fast. When the terrarium is ready, I move him inside. He carefully steps onto the sand, looks around, slowly walks along the perimeter, sniffs the plants, enters the cave, and disappears inside for a couple of minutes. Then he comes back out and settles under a rock. It seems he's satisfied. Over the next few days, he settles in, chooses his sleeping spot, begins to recognize me, allows me to feed him from my hands, and even allows me to gently stroke his head. He freezes but doesn't resist. Right now, he's almost like a puppy. Almost. But there's one problem. He's growing very fast. His legs are getting stronger, his teeth longer, his bite stronger. And if right now he's the size of a cat, in just a few days he'll already be taller than my knee. And the next step is to test how this growing predator will react to other animals. If everything goes according to plan, he'll be able to socialize. If not, we'll see how the true king of predators awakens. Now that he's grown stronger and feels like the master of his small prehistoric world, it's time to test his reaction to other animals. First, I decide to start with the safest option, a dog. Calm, adult, non-aggressive. I carefully open the terrarium and let them see each other through a transparent barrier. The dog tilts its head curiously. The Tyrannosaurus freezes. His pupils narrow. He takes a slow step forward, then another, and suddenly, a sharp lunge forward with open jaws. He crashes into the glass and lets out a low, raspy growl. This is no longer a squeak. This is a warning. Good. That means hunting instincts are stronger than socialization. The next experiment, a cat. It behaves more cautiously, keeping its distance. But as soon as the cat starts moving faster, the T-Rex reacts instantly. His head jerks after every movement, tail tense. He's not playing, he's tracking. For now, the barrier saves the situation, but it becomes obvious he does not see them as friends. That means it's time to move to a more natural form of behavior: hunting. I release several large fish into the water part of the terrarium. At first, he doesn't understand what's happening. Then he notices movement in the water. He slowly approaches the edge, tilts his head, and suddenly strikes the surface with his paw. Water splashes everywhere. The fish scatter. He freezes, and a second later, a lightning-fast bite. The first prey is caught. Over the next few days, he completely changes. He starts patrolling the territory, reacts to every sound, eats much more. His body stretches out, muscles become more defined, his tail thickens. And one morning, I realize he's already taller than my waist. The terrarium becomes cramped. It's time to take him outside. I put on a strong safety harness and take him into open space for the first time. He stops, looks around. The space is enormous. The air is different. The smells are new. He takes his first step on the grass, then another. Then he starts to accelerate. Within seconds, he's already running. His movements become confident, powerful. The ground trembles slightly beneath his paws. People in the distance stop and start watching. Someone pulls out a phone. Someone steps farther away. I lead him into a park. He sniffs trees, digs the ground, watches birds. When a flock of pigeons takes off, he instinctively jumps, trying to grab them in midair. Then I decide to test his reaction to a more complex environment: the beach. Huge space, sound of waves, wind. At first, he's frightened by the sound of the surf. Then he approaches closer. The water touches his paws. He steps back, then moves forward again. Within minutes, he goes deeper and starts moving confidently in the water. His body becomes streamlined. His tail helps maintain balance. He swims better than I expected. But suddenly, he notices a moving silhouette in the water, a large fish. His behavior changes instantly. He dives, disappears for a second beneath the surface, and reappears with prey in his jaws. People start panicking. I realize his size is already too serious. He is no longer a hatchling, he is a teenage predator. A year of accelerated growth simulation passes. His weight increases many times over. He no longer fits in the house. He sleeps not in a terrarium, but on a specially reinforced platform. His footsteps can be heard even through walls. He eats huge chunks of meat. His appetite becomes insatiable. And then comes the moment I feared. He's too big to live near people. His height exceeds 3 meters. His head is at the level of the second floor. Every dash is a potential threat. And no matter how much I want to keep him with me, it becomes clear he needs more space. The next stage of his life is a massive specialized park for giant animals, a place where he can live among other large creatures. But I have no idea that it's there where everything will truly spiral out of control. His transportation is already a separate operation. Reinforced metal container, armored walls, heavy machinery. He doesn't resist, but his breathing echoes dully inside the structure like an engine. When the truck starts moving, I feel for the first time that I'm losing control of the situation. The new giant animal park looks impressive. Huge territory, tall fence, reinforced gates, surveillance system along the entire perimeter. A special enclosure is built for him. A spacious plain with massive boulders, an artificial canyon, a deep reservoir, and a large cave in the rock for solitude. Everything calculated for a predator of his scale. The first days pass calmly. He explores boundaries, sniffs rocks, tests the water. His movements are heavy but confident. He's already over 5 meters long, massive jaws, teeth like daggers. He still recognizes me, responds to my voice, but something else appears in his gaze: independence. The park begins attracting huge numbers of people. Crowds stand by the glass wall, take photos, shout, knock on the enclosures. At first he ignores them. Then he begins to get irritated. He cannot escape the constant attention. Even in the cave, the hum of voices can be heard. At night, he barely sleeps. A few days later, his behavior changes. He growls more often. His tail hits the ground. He no longer responds to commands as quickly. And then the moment happens that changes everything. When another crowd gathers at the glass wall, he suddenly turns and slams into the transparent barrier with full force. The glass holds, but cracks. People scatter in panic. Children cry. Security activates sirens. Park management decides he must be isolated. He's moved to a closed sector outside the main zone. The new enclosure is smaller, less light, less space, dirtier water, and almost no contact. Now he wakes to the sound of machinery and metal doors. Food is brought irregularly. Sometimes he stays hungry longer than necessary. He begins walking in circles, leaving deep tracks in the ground. His roar becomes louder. He strikes the walls with his tail. One night, he uses his full strength for the first time. He gains speed and rams the wall. The metal bends. The alarm system starts wailing. He hits the structure again and again. Bolts fly out. The barrier collapses. He breaks free. Sirens sound across the entire park. Animals in neighboring enclosures begin to panic. Some break through their own barriers. Chaos begins. The Tyrannosaurus steps into the main territory. He is more than 7 meters long. His steps are like hammer blows. He destroys structures, flips service vehicles, breaks gates. The rhinoceros that once tried to provoke him ends up in his path. One strike of the jaws, and it's over. The park turns into ruins. He doesn't stay there. He moves on, toward the city. Now this is no longer a pet. This is a giant predator at large, and the world begins to understand that raising an ancient king was the greatest mistake. But the most dangerous part is still ahead. He stops at the ocean. Waves crash against the shore, the wind pulling at his enormous frame. The city behind him glows with emergency lights, but he no longer runs. He stares at the horizon. In his eyes, there is no rage now, only exhaustion. And in that moment, I remember what he once was. Tiny, small enough to fit in my palm. The way he awkwardly snapped his little teeth, how he spat out berries, how he shook a soft ball as if it were prey, how he learned to balance in the water, how he trusted me for the first time and allowed my hand to rest on his head. He grew too fast, and I kept trying to hold on to something that was never meant to be domestic. He takes one step into the water, then another. His massive body slowly disappears into the mist above the ocean. Once he was my pet. Now he belongs to the ancient world we awakened.